The life that God put you in is greater than the life you're living. You want to learn how to you're not your debt. You're not your marital status. You're not your maternal status. You're not your 401k. You want to stop defining yourself by your present circumstances. And before we move forward, let me say this. This is deep, too, because we're talking about, says, whatsoever is true, lovely, a good rapport, if there be any virtue or praise, think on these things. Remember this principle. I've taught you this before. But the thoughts in your mind are more important than the things in your life. The thoughts, that's a good one to write down, in your mind are more important than the things in your life. When you think about it, your life is this ear to this ear, and it's about perception. How do you feel about yourself? How am I doing versus my reference group? How am I doing versus my dreams and my ambition? How am I doing versus my timeline? So the thoughts in your mind, always remember that. It's more important than the things in your life. So many of us, myself included, it's such an easy tendency to have this big day syndrome. When the big day comes, that's when I'm going to be happy. Big day marriage, big day promotion, big day out of debt, big day Fortune 500, America's top entrepreneur, whatever it is. But have you ever noticed that life is what happens to you while you're pursuing something else? This is why we have a teaching entitled Enjoying Everyday Life. Because a lot of life is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's a lot of life. And if you're looking for the weekend to come to get excited, you're in trouble. So we said that we want to be real careful, because when we're experiencing resistance, when there's that pushback, it's real easy to get negative. Let me give you some more facts on negativity. Number one, if you're taking notes, negativity reflects inner defeat. Negativity. The Bible makes it very clear that out of the abundance of their heart, what happens? The mouth speaks. If I hear your conversation, I'll be able to discern your meditation. Negativity reflects inner defeat. I remember I was sharing, that I was very grateful. I got married later than most of my friends. And I was sharing it with someone, and before I could even get the story out, this woman said to me, yeah, but Brother Chris, but you're a man. And I was like, really? Newsflash, I knew that already. And I understood her point, and I'm not minimizing. I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek. I'm not minimizing that the way the relational dynamics are, that for a man it's easier to get married than it is for an older woman. But my point was, before I could even share what I was trying to make a praise report, and that it was worth the waiting, and that the Lord blessed me, and that the Lord honored me, she was already jumping all over me. Say, but you know what? Her negativity represented an inner attitude that's probably picked up by the opposite sex. So again, I'm not minimizing, and I recognize that as an older man versus an older woman, clearly the way the relational dynamics are. But my point is, and the point that I want you to take away is that it reflects an inner defeat. You know the principle, I've shared it with you before, but never use words that make the enemy think that he's winning. Never. Never use words that make the enemy think that he's winning. Never. Very critical. Don't verbalize it. Now, Again, I don't want to turn this into a law. There are times when you'll need to metabolize the experience. You'll need a trusted brother or sister in the Lord, but don't keep rehearsing it. Never use words that make him think that he's winning. So negativity reflects inner defeat. Second point I want to make about negativity is it always justifies itself. Well, if you're in my situation, Brother Chris, you work where I work, Brother Chris. You've been on the dates I've been on, Brother Chris. Live where I live, Brother Chris. Grew up in the family that I grew up in, Brother Chris. It always justifies itself. The Bible tells us by your words you'll be justified, by your words you'll be condemned. Negativity is always looking, well, if you were me, if. Or you'll say someone to someone and the first thing out of their mouth is but. Sometimes you got to get your big but out of the way if you're going to advance. Praise the Lord. So it reflects inner defeat. I've shared this before. Nobody's better than it, regardless of your assessment of his life off the course. Nobody has a better explanatory style than Tiger Woods. They can't bait him. And he'll say, well, you know, he may have lost a tournament. He'll say, tell us about your round. He'll say, man, I was getting off the tee great. I tell you what, my long irons. I tell you what, I played the par fives, terrific. And he always starts out with what he's doing well. They want him to focus maybe on a putty miss or one thing. But his explanatory style, and remember what explanatory style is, it's critical. Explanatory style is how you explain the events of life back to yourself. You talk about a skill set that you want to be gifted in or well developed in. You either have an empowering explanatory style, no man takes my life, I lay it down. You meant it what you meant for evil, God meant for good. For this cause came I into the world, and if I perish, I perish. Look at Jesus' explanatory style. It was always empowering. I'm the way, I'm the door, I'm the light, I'm the good shepherd. He was explaining the events of his life back to himself in a way that empowered him. Most of us explain the events of life back to ourselves in a way that demoralizes us. They say you think 50,000 thoughts a day and 40,000 of them are about things you don't want to happen. So you want to have an empowering explanatory style. Paul made statements like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Woe to me if I don't preach the gospel. I'm crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Galatians 2:20. What's your explanatory? How are you explaining life back to you? Now that's a question. Because you know the media has one way that they want to explain life back to you. And dysfunctional relatives have one way that they want to explain life back to you. And your other miserable friends have one way they want to explain life. But how are you explaining life back to yourself? What's your explanatory style? When you get married, it's one thing not to publicly outwardly verbalize negative things about your spouse repeatedly, but it's a whole nother ball game not to meditate on them silently. There are a lot of people, they may not be verbalizing it, but they're slicing their spouse up, rolling their eyes, sucking their teeth, minimizing them in front of the children. How are you explaining the events of life back to yourself? Can't you just take this cup away from me, Lord? Nevertheless, not my will, but yours. His whole journey. I always say it, nothing Jesus heard from other people was for validation. It was always for confirmation of something he already knew about himself. Number 3, negativity, believe it or not, chooses your friends. Because people don't want to be around hyper negative. Only people who want to be around hyper negative people are other hyper negative people. I mean, girl, I got it bad, but I ain't like Hazel. I mean, Hazel's got it bad. Think about it. You don't want to be. I avoid negative people like the plague now.